Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Scott Daly, and this is my sailing co-captain, Matt Freeman, and we have just discovered podcasting.
Did we really discover it, though? Podcasting was kind of already there, you know?
No, Matt, you have to be a true visionary to claim that you discovered something that's already well known. And that, my friend, is us.
Well, that makes sense.
Indeed. This week on the show, we are continuing our series Deconstructing the Films of Ridley Scott. We are on the director's 8th film of 23 films, I think, total. The movie that we're going to be talking about this week is 1992's 1492 Conquest of Paradise. That's right, the Christopher Columbus movie that you all have been waiting for. Then after that, we're going to have a brief chat about the first 3 episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the newest Disney Plus show. I think, Matt, you and I have a little bit to say about the show. We talked about it a bit last week, but now we've gotten a chance to actually watch it. And we've got some things to say. Yeah,
we both do now.
And then, Matt, over the weekend, I saw a little movie called Top Gun Maverick, and I just have to talk to you about it, Matt.
Okay.
It's really important to me right now to talk about Top Gun Maverick.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it then. Let's get the main thing out of the way first. Let's talk about Ridley Scott's 1492 Conquest of Paradise.
In a time of rigid faith and restless doubt, one man challenged the forces of fear and ignorance.
You are a passionate man, Senor Columbus.
Driven by a sense of destiny and ambition, he crossed the sea of darkness in search of honor, gold, and the greater glory of God.
Matt, what is this movie all about?
Christopher Columbus's discovery of the Americas and the effect this has on the indigenous people.
This movie was written by Rose Bosch, directed by Ridley Scott, of course, and stars Gerard Depardieu as the titular 1492 and Armand Asante as some guy that doesn't like him.
Okay.
I'm going to stop joking because we have serious work to do right now, because I need you, Matt, to tell me what you thought of Ridley Scott's 8th film, 1492.
So I feel like we're in the privileged position of being some of the few people in the world who know about a movie that is equivalent to The Room, in terms of being like just god awful. And it's like sort of this should be a legendary bad movie, you know? And here's the thing. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was directed by Ridley Scott. It cost tens of millions of dollars to make.
It did indeed.
One of the most beautiful period piece films I've ever seen. And a horrible piece of shit movie. Just baffling. For all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
I think Gerard Depardieu is number one amongst those reasons.
Number one with a bullet. Yeah, I agree with you on this one, Matt. This is not a good movie. Neither of us had seen this movie before. Frankly, I hadn't even heard of it. Apparently, unsurprisingly, in the year 1992, there was a lot of talk about Christopher Columbus because it was the 500th anniversary of 1492. The date that Columbus, quote unquote, discovered America. There were actually 2 dramatic films made that came out this year. This one, I think, is the one of having the privilege of actually being released on the 500th anniversary of the date that Columbus landed in the New World. So therefore, the better one, right? I haven't seen the other movie, but it's a very low bar to say you're better than this movie.
That's true. Yes.
And I agree with you about the way the movie looks. And maybe we'll try to get the stuff we like about this movie out of the way first, because it's not going to be a lot of the conversation.
Yeah.
I do think you're absolutely right that this is an incredibly beautifully shot movie. The way Ridley Scott shoots the New World, the way he shoots Spain, the way he allows the movie to draw a contrast between these two places, the way in which Spain is dirty and grubby and gross, and then the way the New World is this kind of pristine, paradise, as the title of the film says. And like the first shot we get of the Americas is, they're on these ships and they know land is there, and there's this heavy mist over everything, and then suddenly, as if magically, the mist clears and you just see this lush paradise, and it's this wonderfully built up to moment that I was just like, hell yeah, Ridley, you're doing great. But it seems like everything else in this movie is outside of his control in some ways. Like, it just seems like he doesn't have control over anything that's happening, or if he does, he makes literally every single bad choice.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what's fascinating is the like there could have been a good movie somewhere in here. Maybe I don't know. Like we could talk about this movie forever. That's what's so interesting about it.
Yeah.
Because it's overlong and boring and poorly paced as storytelling. Like, it has the disease of the worst of the like true historic tales or biopics, where it's like, we're just going to plod through the most boring things and dramatize things where there's really no inherent drama to it, because it's like, well, this is what really happened, so we have to make it interesting. And Depardieu is he just sucks. He just sucks. And but then it's like, some of the stuff that's happening is so like intrinsically interesting that you kind of can't stop watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I've ever felt that way about a movie. Like there's a scene where like one of the Spanish nobles on the second trip to the Americas is like, he's played by, we just talked about his name and now I've forgotten his name. It's the guy from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Michael Wincott
as Mojica.
And he like rides his horse like into the Native Americans village and like rides it around and like makes it do all those like Spanish horse tricks where it can like walk on its hind legs and do all those cool things. And it's like an incredibly, and then it's like, it's obviously so fascinating that the natives come out of hiding to like look at it and touch the horse and everything. It's like such an interesting set piece. There's so many visually interesting things. This is like the classic Ridley Scott thing, is he's like that as a thing was just absolutely mesmerizing.
Yeah. I mean,
as a moment,
Yeah, I mean, I feel a similar way about the scene in which they raise the bell to the top of that tower.
Mm-hmm.
It's this incredibly powerful scene where like you see them struggle and fight with the weight of this bell, and like it's like symbolic of Columbus's entire struggle to be taken seriously and to be listened to, and he has to talk to nobles to get to use their horses because they refuse to help out, and like. It's this great kind of microcosm of the film as a whole. And it's this wonderfully, beautifully shot scene where you kind of, despite how fucking bored I was, I got into like, get the bell to the fucking top of it. And it's like it's like the native people are helping and the Spanish are helping, and everyone's together trying to lift this thing. And it's exactly what this movie wants to be, or what Columbus imagines. And when I say Columbus, I say this movie's character that is Christopher Columbus, not Columbus, the real person, imagines this wonderful paradise of commingling and coexisting to work together to build a new society free of all the problems that exist back in Europe. And I love that scene. And Ridley Scott shot the absolute shit out of that scene. And I wish the rest of the movie was more like that one scene and the scene that you're talking about than it is everything else.
Yeah, well, there's just so much of it, like you said, that's boring. I want to explicate what you just said about the fact that this Christopher Columbus is not the true Christopher Columbus, and in fact the whole movie is basically this massive, like the narrative is Christopher Columbus is this incredible visionary.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the few people who recognized that the world was round and that there was any possibility of ever sailing west. Nobody recognized how great he was And then finally, when people did listen to him, it was just because they thought that they could exploit him ultimately. And then when they tried to exploit him, he was just too proud and just so great that they couldn't even scam him the way they wanted to. And then he was the only one with the blah 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 blah, and like, and at a certain point, you're just like, oh my god, like I'm like, part of me wants to. I don't really believe this is true, but part of me wants to believe that like, by overdoing it to that extent and by having Depardieu play him the way he plays him in this kind of overwrought, like exhausting, unlikable manner, that I'm like, are we supposed to paradoxically dislike Columbus even though the movie is apparently trying so hard to make us like him? Because in the end, I dislike him.
You're so right, because my God. So I want to talk about the real world Columbus for a bit, but
Sure.
before we get to that, the version of this character is that the movie tells us, you're right, is supposed to be this incredible genius visionary. And Gerard Depardieu was the exact wrong person to cast for him, because Gerard Depardieu is an oafish idiot. And I don't know him as a person. I just know the characters he plays. He's an oafish idiot. I think in real life, he's a horrible, monstrous rapist. So I don't feel too bad about making fun of him, because he's a literal monster. But the way he acts, and the way he acts in all his movies, by the way, is this kind of clumsy, oafish, big, like he's a big guy, right? And so he just like, he towers over everyone, but like not in a commanding way, more in like of a goofy kind of way.
Yeah.
And like I feel like you're right, that either the movie just didn't know what the fuck it was doing, or it made this choice on purpose to contradict what we're being told about him with who he actually was, or who we see him actually to be.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like if like the main character of any biopic is played by like a guy who is just looks like and is acting like an ogre.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be like, I think I'm supposed to not like him, but then like we said before, like obviously every other choice in the movie is like but for Columbus we would all be lost.
Yeah. It's so weird, man. It's so fucking weird. And like, look, I legitimately do not understand why Gerard Depardieu was a thing ever. Like, I don't think he's ever good. I've never seen him in a thing that I was like, yeah, you're doing great work there, bud. The first movie I saw him in was the movie Man in the Iron Mask, in which he plays one of the Three Musketeers. But in this version of the story, this is after the events of the first novel, The Three Musketeers. And it's years down the road, and he's playing a fat, drunkard, miserable, oafish Porthos, and that is the perfect casting for him, because he has to play this idiot. And that's the first I saw him in, so that's like always been my vision of him. And this movie did not change that at all.
Yeah,
he's a little bit younger in this movie, maybe a little bit more in shape, but and it's so weird. He's an Italian in Spain, and Gerard Depardieu has like the most French accent ever. It's just so weird. And then Sigourney Weaver is the king of Spain, or the queen of Spain rather. And it's just like, what were you thinking, Ridley?
Yeah. Like, it would have been a totally different movie with a different actor. Like that. It's so hard. It's so hard for me to escape from talking about him and his acting choices.
Yeah.
And, it's all just repellent.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
You know, like there's other parts of the movie that are, I don't know, like some of the side characters are actually interesting, but then usually they like are so minor and so sparely described by the movie, and you know, or like they die quickly or something, you know.
Yeah,
we were talking about this earlier, like how there's like maybe one other character in this movie who matters at all, and it's
the
like
Armand Assante character, right?
Armand Assante character who's like his rival, sort of.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's just such a weird way of doing a story like this. Like there really should be other characters to kind of bounce off of.
Yeah, you know what did not do this movie any favors? Us just reading The Terror a week before this, in which you know, we get to meet so many characters on the ship. And like the weirdest choice to this movie to me was how much they yada yada the actual first voyage, you know?
Yeah.
Like we spend 30 minutes in Spain setting up his voyage. We spend 15 minutes on the ocean where it's basically like, oh, the men are mad at you. And then you, Columbus, convince them to go again by promising 10,000 whatever's a year to the man who spots land first, which, by the way, a person did spot land first, and then Christopher Columbus said that actually, no, it was me. And so he's the one that got that money, even though it was bullshit because Christopher Columbus was a bad person. He was a bad person. But anyway, none of the crew members like stuck in my head at all. I mean, there was like the one guy played by Kevin Dunn, who was a character named Mendez, who was a character, like an actor I recognize. So I was like, oh, it's him. It's not character actor. But like his role in this movie is just to come up to the captain and be like, Sir Columbo, the men are very mad. and then he's done in the movie. And I think he dies on the island, like they all do.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah, like that's the thing. You want more from him. He's great. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the voyage. I agree. It was funny watching it after the terror because they're like ready to mutiny after like 5 weeks, and like the terror, it's like
3 years.
We're on year 3, and maybe somebody's grumbling about mutiny, and the conditions are obviously infinitely worse. But anyway, whatever. That's you're right. It was an unfortunate comparison because I was literally rolling my eyes at these guys. It's like, you have plenty of food,
and I wanted more of it, man. I don't know, like I feel like the movie chose to focus the story really about Columbus's failed attempts to actually establish any real presence in the New World, right? Like which I mean is true. Like it is true that the first settlement that Columbus made was like completely ravaged by a hurricane and just collapsed because he built his stuff on the wrong side of the island. Because on top of being a jackass, Christopher Columbus was also an idiot who was bad at his job. Like that is like that is verifiably true. And so, okay, I want to say here, it doesn't matter if this movie is historically accurate, right? Like in order to determine the quality of the movie, its historical accuracy doesn't actually matter, right? If this was a good movie, but had nothing to do with the real Christopher Columbus, I would still call it a good movie. Yeah. It's not a bad movie because it's incredibly inaccurate to who Columbus was, but also it's incredibly inaccurate to who Columbus actually was.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think that it would have actually been a better movie if it had gone all in on like, look at this idiot and how stupid and awful he is.
Yeah. Because the thing about Columbus is it's not just that like in 2022 we look back at him and be like, oh, actually this guy was bad. In 1492 people thought Columbus was bad. Like the things he did in the New World was bad to the people that existed in that time. And you know you're fucking up when those people are mad at you for the things you're doing. Like the thing about like this movie talks about, and it's so funny because like they tried to be accurate about certain things, but they left off important parts. Like the one thing that they were saying is like people were mad at Columbus because he's treating, you know, Spaniards on the same level as he's treating these godless natives, you know? And they were very upset about that. It's because we should be treated better. But like what they didn't say was, yes, because he's torturing both groups equally. He's horribly torturing and mutilating the native people, but also the Spanish colonists. He's chopping off their arms. Like that one scene where the bad guy chops off that guy's arm for not bringing enough gold or or whatever. That Columbus that's what he was doing. Like that's what he did. Like, and it's so funny because like they gesture towards the historical accuracy with like technically telling the truth, which is that yes, a guy came to Columbus's colony to investigate accusations of barbarism, but like the movie frames it as if, you know, the people working against Columbus are taking away his future from him, when really it's just like people reported back to Spain that this man is a monster and the things he are doing were completely monstrous, and that you should not let him be the governor of this place anymore.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and also, and then setting aside, like you said, the like obvious immorality and evil, he just didn't seem to have any competency as an actual leader, or know anything about how to establish a settlement, or like, you know, have put any effort into like picking a good spot for any of their settlements. They just kind of wherever they, I mean, the movie makes it seem like it's just like wherever they happen to land, that's where they're gonna. I don't know if that's true. Might as well be true, because it seems like all these settlements failed, and you know, they tried to build the way that you build buildings in Spain, and not the way that you build them on, you know, the hurricane side of, you know, Cuba or whatever.
Isn't that the weird thing about this movie though? Because I think actually, like, visually seeing that one building that he built with that has the bell in it, it's so out of place in this world that you could almost squint at it and see that it's an argument for how stupid he is, because this building has no business being here, and the fact that you focused and that's the first thing you constructed in your new colony shows how inept you are. But I don't feel like the movie's actually saying that.
No, I don't. I agree. Like that, I would love to believe that there was a Straussian reading where this is actually an anti-Columbus masterpiece. That's like a satire, but no, because it's like, no, he's glorifying God in his own way, and and it's like, no, this is because he's such a good man that he would build this one building first, even though it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I mean, the way it frames the relations between the Spaniards and the natives as if like Columbus was trying really hard to keep everyone peaceful, and then it was just these damn people just screwed it up. It wasn't my fault. I wasn't doing anything wrong. It's these damn other people. It just frames him as the character who's just like the good-hearted optimist that was powerful to stop the inevitable, and instead of, you know, playing a key part in the inevitable, which is such a weird choice. I don't understand why you would do it that way. Like, and you're right that not even historical accuracy, but just crafting an interesting character, focus on his flaws as a person, and there are plenty of interesting things you could say in a story that focuses on this man's failings, because he did fail. And again, I feel like the movie gestures at that when it's like, oh, you didn't get to discover the continent. Actually, that was Amerigo Vespucci, who gets the whole continent named after him, not you, Chris. You know, I don't know.
It seems to miss what are like obvious opportunities for the plot to make sense. So one way, like one way that I think about this is like he the way that he falls from grace is like so poorly drawn.
Yeah.
Is like the first voyage, it's difficult, there's struggle, but he returns triumphant for having discovered it in the first place. You know, his status is incredibly elevated. He becomes like whatever the highest possible rank of noble is. Basically, he's incredibly wealthy now. You know, he walks in this parade like with the queen on his arm. It's you know, it's great moment for him. And then like he goes back for the second voyage, and then when he comes back, it's like his fortunes have totally reversed, and it's like, wait, what happened exactly? Like what? Like it's almost like the movie is intentionally obfuscating the fact that the reason his fortunes have reversed is that he fucked up so badly. Yeah. That he's being punished, and that people are trying to be like, all right, like cool, good job discovering it. We're proud of you, bud. You can't be the leader of things. You're not a good leader. Yeah. The movie like doesn't want you to realize that somehow. And it feels weird. Like actually, as you're watching it, you're like, what is happening? Like, why is this happening?
I mean, it attempts to frame it as the Armando Santi character, like manipulating the queen into, you know, punishing Columbus, right? Like that's the reason he gets arrested, is because like the queen is kind of is manipulated out of this by both the nobles and the church reporting back on these terrible things about what Columbus is doing, when in actuality he's not doing any of these things. It's the people around him that are doing it. He can't control it. And it's, again, it's just a fascinating choice to go in this direction. I don't understand it. I don't understand anyone. Like, I've read about Christopher Columbus because I was curious, because like whenever people start like collectively agreeing, hey, you should hate this person, I always go, huh, I wonder why. And so I read some books about him, and yeah, he's awful. He's terrible. And like, I think one thing this movie does a really bad job of is demonstrating that in 1492, pretty much everyone thought that the Earth was round. It was like, at least amongst the educated folks that would be making decisions about like the state of the Earth, they all pretty much agreed that it's probably round. The reason why no one was sailing to the west is because they had measured how big they thought the Earth was, and they were like, oh, Asia's like way too far fucking away. We will definitely die if we go that way. And they didn't know that there was a giant continent in the way, actually. And some people did, actually. Some people theorized that there's probably another continent in between that you would hit. But the thing about Columbus is he was just stupid enough to try. Like, that's the whole thing. He was stupid enough to try and convincing enough to get money to do so. Like, it's not that no one was capable of doing this before. Ships that could make that journey had existed for like 100 years. So like, it wasn't new technology. It was just someone stupid enough to do it, and someone with enough money to agree to let them do it. And yeah, I guess that's one prop that you can give Christopher Columbus, is that he was convincing enough to get the ear of the Queen and convince her that this is an expedition worth funding.
Yeah, right. There was an interesting, bit of the movie where the Queen, is complaining like, oh my God, this is going to be so expensive. And it's funny because in the modern day, we have no idea what anything cost in, 1492.
Sure.
It's like, oh, outfitting and sending off 3 ships is like a significant expense, even for a major, monarch. I'm surprised to hear it, but I guess it's like, yeah, well, sure. Like a sailing ship was a piece of high technology back then. So I guess it makes sense.
And I don't know, Spain at the time, like, part of what elevates Spain to superpower is kind of their stake in the New World, right? Like, they basically claim this whole continent and say ours now, and when like the routes get well trod enough that trade can begin, they just get super super fucking rich off this whole thing.
Yeah.
But at the time, I wouldn't call Spain like a superpower in the world, and so they didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
the movie sucks.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so long, and there's so many different parts of it, and it's so boring, except for like a few flashes of visual brilliance. I guess that's kind of the last thing I'm interested in even saying is, I guess I have to say I'm glad we watched it for the sake of this project, and the reason is Ridley Scott continues to be an amazing visual director. I actually think this is a step up from the Duelists in terms of like just the visual meticulousness and beauty of practically every shot. Like, even though it's so boring, it's extremely well thought out visually, and just the atmosphere of it is actually quite compelling. Like, it's another movie where I would have preferred it with the sound off.
Yeah.
And I think you can sort of see some shadings of what's going to go into Gladiator. Like, so some of the visuals reminded me of Gladiator, and I think we're kind of seeing him work his way toward that sort of.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a good point to remember that this is the second period piece that he's done, and the first one since his very first movie, right? So this is like the only the second time he's gone back in time and told a movie of a long time ago. And yeah, I mean, it does have a different look from the Duelists. I mean, we talked about how 70s that movie was. This is a very 90s movie, but it's not like 90s. I feel like bad movies in the 90s are very cheap and terrible looking, and it just very kind of plasticky. And this movie doesn't seem like that at all. It looks like there was a lot of money spent. It's incredibly violent, actually. We haven't talked about that, but like when violence breaks out in the New World, it's done so in like the most violent way possible. Like it's PG-13, but I was kind of surprised at that, in that there's a lot of blood. Like when the Michael Wincott character kills himself when he's kind of cornered and knows he's fucked and jumps off, like he breaks his leg when he falls and hits the thing. And for some reason the movie's like, yeah, he's going to fucking break his leg and it's going to be a compound fracture because that bone is coming out of the leg and you're going to see it. And it's just like, wow, that's commitment. That completely unnecessary.
Right. Yeah. His body's just pulverized. It's disgusting. Yeah. And they find the dead bodies of the Spaniards who the natives have killed, and they're just horribly butchered and their heads have been cut off. And it's like, oh my God. Yeah, no, it's pretty shocking for PG-13, I guess. I think the standards were pretty different in the 90s, honestly, but
sure.
Yeah, it's very and then later when they're having like the kind of battle with the natives, there's like people getting like stabbed and there's blood, and yeah, it's pretty brutal, actually. You're right.
But this is another thing that frustrates me about this movie, Matt, because so when we first meet the natives, like the way Ridley Scott chooses to shoot these guys is one of like serenity and curiosity and respect, right? Which is very surprising for a movie in the 90s. Like they're definitely kind of othered in that their culture, the way they dress, the way they act is very different from the Spaniards who we probably most identify with. But like everyone's kind of fascinated with their way of life, with learning about them, and Columbus himself and thusly the frame of the movie sees them as this group of people that is free from all the terribleness that plagues the societies of Europe. Which I mean, it makes sense, right? Like we're defining this as a paradise, we're defining this as an Eden, and these are the people that live in this Eden. And then when things start to break down and violence happens, it's so fascinating the ways in which the native people are just completely transformed into monsters.
Yeah.
Like literal, like they're snarling and like foaming at the mouth while attacking the Spaniards' monsters. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't understand why he went that hard with that, that transformation. Like it just seemed unnecessary to just flip a switch. And now actually, oh my God, these people are terrible.
Yeah. Right. I don't know that there was a solid understanding of what we were trying to say about, this, like you said, the thematic idea that this is paradise. And they even, there's some mumbliness about like, yes, Earth can be made a paradise, but Earth can also be made into hell. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but you made it into hell.
But I think that's, to me, that's the point, right? Is that the Spaniards brought hell to the New World.
But that's what it should be. Mm-hmm. But then why are the natives the one who look like demons?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. I don't get it.
It's messy. It's very messy. Like,
I mean, the honest truth is that the natives were human beings, which means, some of them were really good and nice and friendly, and other ones were very violent and destructive and bad. And, like the 39 people that were left behind from the original expedition were indeed killed by the natives. And it's actually not what was said in this movie, which is they kind of said another tribe came in and killed them. The tribe they were staying with killed them because they started being assholes to them, and they just got sick of them. They were enslaving them and ordering them around and acting as superior. And while they thought they were gods originally, they eventually just got sick of them and killed them all. Right. And so it's so weird that we just kind of yada yada over that, or make that, their fault and not the Spaniards' fault.
Yeah. Right. I mean, just rationally, like, The movie did give enough space to the natives, like when they have some of these meetings with like the chief, where it's one of the few cases in film actually where you can actually kind of see this chief being like, this is a really bad situation for us. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to come back with many, many more of these people. Shit. Like, is there any way that we can stop that from happening? And like one of the few things that you could think of in that position would be like, well, we could just kill all of them and then hope that, hope that nobody else comes, because that's literally all you can do. And if you correctly reason that these people are not going, that they don't have your best interests at heart, because they obviously don't, then that's like the only real politique choice that's left to you.
Man, this is so weird, because I'm so confused by this movie, because there's the one native guy, like the first one that he kind of befriends, but he I mean Columbus, and like they're the one that has like the most lasting long-term relationship throughout the course of the movie. And then the last time we see him, he's turning to Christopher Columbus and being like, "You never learned how to speak my language," and that's like the last thing he says to him before he like fades into the forest, and never to be seen again.
Yeah.
Which in a different movie is a great fucking line, right? Because what it's signaling is, you, Christopher Columbus, fucked up. You said you wanted to come to this place and find this Eden and live here, and you could see our way of life and our way of doing things is maybe not superior, but different enough to where you can appreciate it. But you never fully integrated yourself into it. You never fully bought into anything of this. You just tried to recreate Europe over here. You just tried to rebuild the same things and redo the same things. And if that's what the movie was trying to do, it would be really more interesting. But I think it completely failed to do that.
It does. It does completely fail. It's interesting that the movie did horribly in the box office. Didn't actually do that horribly critically. Like Roger Ebert said, it was kind of okay.
Yeah, he gave it 3 out of 4 stars, I think, which was very surprising.
It's very, very weird to me, and I think by far the weirdest. Well, I guess I shouldn't say this is the weirdest thing, but it's interesting to me in the context of deconstructing Ridley Scott that he thinks this is a great movie. He thinks that we're all wrong, and he made fun of Americans for not watching the movie because it had accents. And I'm like, no, that's not why Americans didn't watch the movie. And he says, I see a quote from him here. He says, "It's one of my favorite films."
That's fascinating.
And I'm like, I think this just says so much. Like, I'm still very much in a place where I respect Ridley Scott and think he's an extremely talented, genius in terms of visual directing. I don't know that he is. I don't know that he understands story very well.
I don't think he's a writer's director, and I think you're absolutely right. I think that's what this movie definitively concludes, and that quote, I think even more so. The idea that he is in love with this movie makes sense if you look at it as a visual fiesta, where you get to see, him kind of play in these spaces of creating what a colony in 1494 in the New World would look like, right? And how would it look at this combination, and how I would shoot that, and how I would shoot the different ways in which these two sides are trying to coexist, but like failing to, and all these different things, all these fascinating pieces that would be fun and look great, but in the end don't work in a story. So I think you're absolutely right. It's like he stumbles upon good scripts every so often. Mm-hmm. Alien, Thelma and Louise. And when you take his visual flair and combine that with an amazing script, you get an all-time, and like literally all-time movie. Like every one of the Ridley Scott movies in which he's gotten a good script just becomes a classic forever for that exact reason. But yeah, when you get all his visual flair without any of that other stuff, it creates messes like this, someone to I don't even know, remember the name of that movie now.
Someone to Watch Over Me.
Yeah.
It's such a waste of time.
Yeah. I think that's a better movie than this, though, by the way.
I think in terms of storytelling and script, yeah. I mean, it's I don't know if I want to come out swinging here, but like I really don't think that he respects the importance of a script and just a solid story, like a solid narrative.
Yeah.
Like he seems to think of it as almost optional, and he's just like, I'm just going to make a film that's just visually beautiful, and then people are just going to get lost in it and swim through the visual majesty of what I've created. And like very few people actually watch movies that way.
Mm-hmm.
People are attached to characters, and they navigate the movie's narrative by what's happening to the characters, and you need there to be connection and continuity and drama scene to scene. And this movie has none of that. This is the perfect example of a Ridley Scott movie with no narrative to speak of.
Yeah.
And the fact that he doesn't recognize that as a massive flaw, I think is like the worst thing I'll say about him, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we talked in our first episode about how he's a storyboarder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Storyboards are very important to him. And I think storyboarding is more important than story to
Mm-hmm.
him.
Mm-hmm.
That he is much more important. He's much more interested in how we establish the scene than he is in the storytelling structure of the scene itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's absolutely true. And it makes this an interesting project for us, because most of the time, even when we weren't doing this series directly on writer directors that write the movies they direct, the directors we did it on, even if they didn't pen the script, they were usually directors who were very, very interested in story. And I think maybe part of the reason we've struggled throughout these 8 episodes with like coming up with a distinct, thematic ethos that is Ridley Scott is because the story is at the bottom of the list of the things he cares about in these movies, which isn't to say there isn't things that match. I think we talked in Thelma and Louise about this kind of common thread we've seen in Ridley Scott movies, which I don't know if I see here at all, actually. But yeah, I mean, it makes it such an interesting project, and I am glad I watched this movie. I did not enjoy watching this movie. I had to do it over 3 sessions because I couldn't stay with it. I had to stop.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I got to see these beautiful images. I'm glad I got to reaffirm my complete disinterest in Gerard Depardieu and anything he ever does. I don't know. It's frustrating in the ways that I think it could have been better. But it does, to me, man, this guy knows where to put a camera and knows how to construct a scene. You're right. Story is just not his back.
Yeah. For the record, I also had to watch it over the course of 2 days in my case. Yeah. I mean, I wonder if, despite the fact that he continues to have said that this was a good movie, mm-hmm. which it isn't.
When is that quote? Like when did he say that?
I don't know when he said that. It does make me curious to know when he said that. Maybe we can figure that out at some point, and we can report back on that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I wonder if either him or someone close to him realized, like, man, Ridley just needs to be only handed really good scripts, and then he's going to be an all-time great director that everybody will love. But if he keeps making shit like this, then he's not going to be directing movies for much longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating to look at his career right now, right? At this point in his career, this is coming off of Thelma and Louise, a movie that made money and was critically acclaimed. And so this is, the time to strike while the iron is hot,
Mm-hmm.
Like suddenly, I don't know if he's exactly at blank check status yet, but suddenly he finds himself probably able to make a lot more projects, have a little bit more sway. And this is the movie he chooses to do it with, a movie that cost $47 million and made 7, a horrific bomb of a film, his worst bomb so far. And you're right. Like if I was sitting here talking to you in 1992, I don't know if I would say with confidence that the guy who directed Alien is going to be making movies in the future, because I mean, like, it's kind of like taking your check and cashing it on this, and then people go like, I'm not doing that again. But obviously he did get to make another movie and another movie and another movie, and I think over the course of these next few, he builds up a reputation. I do wonder, one of the things we haven't talked about, and it's because I haven't really read about it anywhere, is what his behavior on set is like, you know, like what type of on-set director is he? Because I've never read anything about people saying Ridley Scott is a pain in the ass to work for. I've never read anything about people saying like, oh, Ridley Scott goes over budget. He's constantly late. We constantly have to send in producers to kind of sit there and watch him and make sure he's getting it done. I don't think these stories exist about Ridley Scott. And the argument could be made that like that is a talent or a trait in the film industry that is very highly sought after. You know, if you can deliver on time, under budget, and you're not a pain in the ass to work with, you're much more likely to get another movie, even if the last one you made bombs.
Yeah. Right. No, I agree. I mean, from what I have seen, which is just scatters of information here and there, everybody loves him. You know, the actors love him. I think he has a very sort of professional attitude is my impression, where he's like, we're all here to do a job. We're going to do it in a timely fashion. You know, cares about the budget, cares about the actors and gets it done. And yeah, I mean, I think that you're right that is very valuable. And I think that's one of the most interesting things to me about him is that he has that attitude, or he appears to have that attitude. And yet he is this visionary in every sense of the word, where he what he has brought to us are some of the most artistically spectacular, creative things you've ever seen. It's just a funny contradiction, because when somebody tells you like, yeah, this director made this bizarre thing, there's never been anything like it before, and it influenced everything coming for decades after, then your first thought is like, oh, well, they're probably a weirdo then. And it's like, no, actually, he seems very normal and professional and reliable. So
yeah, and it also like I don't know if we've covered a director who swings as dramatically as Ridley Scott does. You know, like we've covered directors that we didn't like some of their movies, right? But like to go from making one of the all-time great science fiction films in Alien and also Blade Runner, to, I mean, like we haven't gotten to it yet, but to Gladiator, one of the all-time great of that genre. I don't even know what I would call it, but the kind of the sword and sandal type epic history films, to making a movie like this. It's just like that they're on the complete opposite side of the pole from each other. And it's just like, you don't see that. Like, obviously, like not every director is going to make a hit, right? And not every director is going to make a good movie. Movies are very hard. It's hard to make a good movie. It's very difficult. And even the most talented and skilled directors don't succeed all the time. But the variance here is just pretty remarkable to me.
Yeah.
We're a third of the way through this project, I think, with film number 8. So it's just, I think it's a good time. I'm glad we did this to kind of step back and look at these 8 films so far and what we're thinking, because I did not expect to be feeling this way at this point, but I know better days are coming, which is encouraging.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you look at the rest of the movies, there are a few movies that I either recognize as being movies that I didn't care for, or recognize as, or I don't recognize them, which is also a bad sign. But yeah, like I think most of the movies from here on out are going to be good movies that we're happy to watch. So.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you wanted to say about 1492? We could probably keep going because I have so many questions about so many things, but I feel like we've beaten this horse pretty dead.
Yeah, I don't really recommend it at all to anyone. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I would much rather, read a book about Christopher Columbus. It will tell you some horrifying things about him.
Yeah.
And that will be more enjoyable than this movie.
Yeah, go watch The Room instead.
The Room. You didn't tell me exactly what you meant by that. I think we kind of got distracted. So is it just the level of performance seems like incompetency at the level that it's a joke?
It's I think what I was thinking is like people willingly watch The Room because it's like so bad it's good. It's like it's so bad that it becomes amusing to think about, like, how the hell did this happen? And I think that that's kind of the way in which I was watching this movie, honestly. Like at a certain point, I was just like, this is absurd. And I'm actually enjoying how bad Depardieu is and how much I dislike him, and and yet simultaneously how funny it is that the movie wants me to love him and think of him as the hero, while I think he's ridiculous. Like it was funny to if they were doing it on purpose, then it would have been a brilliant comedy, but they weren't. So it was an unintentional comedy, like The Room. That's where The Room comparison comes from.
Gotcha. I think I understand. Okay. I'm not sure if I agree that I enjoyed watching this enough, but I've never been a huge fan of the So Bad It's Good, like lulz watch type thing. So, but no, I think I get you. I get you.
Okay, cool.
All right. So that is 1492 Conquest of Paradise. The next Ridley Scott movie we will be tackling is the 1996 film White Squall. So it is important to note here, Matt, that he does take 4 years off between films, which will be the longest break between films in his career. So maybe he did get put into director jail for a little bit and wasn't able to get back into it until White Squall.
It's possible.
So we'll be covering that movie in the future. I think next week is our canon episode, so it'll be a couple weeks before more Ridley Scott, but hopefully it will be a better one.
All right.
Doof. All right, Matt. Obi-Wan Kenobi is out. The first 3 episodes have been released, and we have watched them. And oh boy, I have a lot of things to say about this. I've been thinking about the show a lot, and I want to talk about it, but I want to hear from you first. I want to hear what you think about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I liked the first 30 minutes of the first episode. I liked sad Obi-Wan. And I liked the fact that they actually took the time to think through, like, what has this guy been going through? What have the 10 years after Revenge of the Sith been like for him, and where is he mentally? And there are a few choices like that I really like, but generally the episodes, like the actual sort of scene to scene writing, is I think I said when we were talking earlier, among the worst I've ever seen on television.
Jesus.
So that's my overall. We can go into details and flesh that out, but that's my sense. How about you, Scott? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I have a very complicated relationship with this television show, and I really don't want to be the guy that just comes on and bah humbugs every single Disney Plus show that they release. But I also am not going to lie. I don't think this is a good show. But here's the problem. I actually think on the micro level, I might actually disagree with you on this. I think on the micro level, I like a lot of what the show's doing. And I think, like, as a character that exists in the show and only in the show, I like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I like the things he's going through, and I like, just kind of the by the book storytelling that they're doing with this, like, just like basic storytelling techniques in order to show character change over the course of episodes, show him struggle and overcome these things. I'm really enjoying that. I kind of hate that this is the story that we're telling. Like, I really just kind of hate the entire conceit of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, despite the fact that, in the moment to moments are working on me, like, I just am like, why are we doing this? Like, for example, they're just doing Baby Yoda again, but this time it's Baby Leia instead of Baby Yoda. And like, they couldn't do Baby Luke because Luke never left Tatooine, so they needed someone else, and there's Leia over here, so we're gonna do Baby Leia, which, like, I get it, and a lot of people seem to like little sassy Leia, and it's not that I dislike her. I just also think, like, the decision to take a character famously known for being, like, outspoken and kind of sassy and wonderfully performed by Carrie Fisher, and just be like, well, guess what, folks? She was exactly like that when she was 10 too. It's just, I don't know, man. It's just the least interesting thing you could do to me. And that's where I struggle with the show. It's like, for every moment of like, oh yeah, I love what you did there. I love seeing Ewan McGregor react to the news that Anakin Skywalker is still alive. That fucking works. And in episode 3, when he's like fucking reeling from that fact and like seeing him everywhere, seeing him stand there in the distance, and then actually coming face to face with Darth Vader as he exists now, and seeing, you know, the guilt that he's carrying for the way that he failed this kid in his mind, right?
Mhm.
And this complicated thing that's going on in the show where he is hiding from the world because he feels guilty and he feels like a failure, but he's also using this idea that I'm going to protect Anakin's kids as a way to excuse his hiding. Like, that's the great thing about the first episode, is that like he's standing there like watching Luke from a distance, right? And then he has this conversation with Owen about how he's gonna train Luke when he gets older. And like that's a great excuse to hide from the world and like stick your head in the sand, right? Where like the rest of the world is succumbing to the Empire. And like we get these little bits and pieces in the episode about how like, no, there's this whole underground network where like Jedi are helping each other and like relocating and hiding and you know, maybe gathering forces for a strikeout against the Empire.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan is just like, fuck all that shit. I have to, my charge is to protect Luke. But really it's just an excuse to stay hidden because, and deal with his shame and his guilt for everything. And I love all that stuff. That's fucking great. But then you have stuff like the fucking Darth Vader lightsaber fight in the latest episode. And I'm just like, are we really doing this? Like, this is another thing we talked about last week about Star Wars should be TV, or Star Wars should be movies. And like the fact that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader are fighting, and it's just like this little 5-minute scene in a thing I watched in my living room.
I didn't feel anything.
And I didn't, yeah, it's just like, man, like it just sucks. It just sucks, man.
Yeah, right. You know, it's interesting because I've seen people be like, "What do you expect? It's for children," and I'm like, "It's not.
No, it is not.
My children don't like it. First of all, I put it on and they're not interested. And then there's stuff like that where it's like, this is clearly for 35-year-olds. This is clearly for people who grew up with Star Wars, and I'm supposed to care." About these things because you know that I have downloaded every information about Star Wars into my brain, but I don't because this sucks. It's no.
Remember when that stormtrooper falls off his post and lands on the electric fence and gets chopped in half? This is for kids. This is for kids.
Remember when she cuts off that woman's hand for back talking, and then the woman screams, and then we just like cut away from that, and then the woman's just like not in the scene anymore. And
it's for kids.
Like, where'd she go? It's so confusing. I think, you know, when I say scene to scene writing is among the worst on television, I think really what I mean by that is anything that's an action scene.
Yes. My God. Yes.
There are so many. I'm gonna just highlight the 2 or 3 worst. Anytime there's a chase, so like when they're chasing Leia through the forest. When they're doing the chase along the rooftops, and then finally when I guess you could say Vader is chasing Obi-Wan through the desert. In all of these, you're like, what are the mechanics of what's happening here? Like the person doing the chasing sees the person they're after, and then the person just like zigs to the side, and then it's like, I lost him. It's like Vader's like he's chasing him through a desert. Where's Obi-Wan going? How is he losing him?
I love how so Obi-Wan is wandering through the desert. Suddenly in front of him is Vader. Vader takes out his lightsaber, turns it on, and you're like, oh fuck, this is it. And I was actually kind of into this at this moment. And the part that I was mostly into is where Obi-Wan looks at him and like looks at his own lightsaber and then just says, nah, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, sweet. So he's so fucking damaged that he's not even going to pull out his lightsaber, that he can't even pull out his Jedi weapon. That's how much he doesn't feel like a Jedi. And then the next scene we cut to, and he's now run away from Vader and then has turned on his lightsaber at this point. And you're like, hey, Obi-Wan, it's really bright and blue. If you're trying to run away from a guy in the dark, he's just gonna find you by your blue glowy sword.
That was maybe the single most disappointing thing ever. So one choice I did like is that he doesn't use the Force literally at all until Leia falls off the roof. And then it's like he has to dig deep within himself and catch Leia while she's falling. Which is,
it's like he's having to flex a muscle that he hasn't used in so long that it doesn't come easy to him.
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that would have been easy for him, like so easy for him years ago. And then every time he's fighting, he uses a blaster, which is kind of a fun and funny little twist because he hated using blasters. Like that was a thing from the prequels. He's always using blasters, never pulls out the lightsaber. Even in situations where it would make sense for him to pull out the lightsaber, because it's like he can't. It's like he knows that it's not even going to work right. And then when we finally pull out the lightsaber, it doesn't. It's like the most undramatic, like whatever. It's like like we didn't even see him decide to pull out the lightsaber.
No, he just did it, and it is a situation that didn't make sense. Like obviously, it makes sense for him to not feel up to challenging Anakin, and I actually like the fact that Darth Vader beats the shit out of him here. First, okay, I like the fact in the universe that exists in which the show does not tie into anything else, because obviously this retroactively makes everything said in A New Hope really weird. But that's not like, that's yada yada. I don't care about that. I don't really care about that. But like, it's so. It's one of those things where you think the show's about to do something genius and then it does the exact opposite and you're just so disappointed, because I really thought that scene would have worked wonderfully if he's so fucking damaged that he just refuses to use a lightsaber, because that it's a Jedi weapon, right? Like the idea that this weapon is your life, like, and he dug it out at the end of the first episode, but he's not ready to use it. It's clear throughout the second episode that he's not ready to use it. So you're absolutely right. Like they built up to him using the Force for the first time. There feels like it's going to be this moment that is built up to that he's like backed into a wall, and maybe even the first time he's backed into a wall, he doesn't do it, right? He doesn't use it. He should have. Like everything in the scene calls for it's lightsaber time, and that really sells that. And no, it's just inert. It's just totally inert. And I was so bummed out about it.
Yeah, I agree. There was maybe the only thing I was liking about the show was that we had like some sort of honest dramatic weight to what was going on with Obi-Wan as a character, and then we just kind of blow a lot of it. I don't know about all of it, like because now he's all horribly burned, and we're gonna he's gonna struggle. And Ewan McGregor is great. Like he's marvelous. Like he's doing the best he could possibly do with this. Yeah. Like there's a lot of jokes about the memes of like in 9 years he's going to go from looking like this to looking like Obi-Wan looks in the first movie. Yeah. I buy it. I actually buy it. His performance here is making me buy it. Yeah. Because he's so sad. Like when he's working on an assembly line, just like carving meat off of a sand beast, that's fucking great shit, man. Yeah. And I wish more of the show was that shit. Right. I mean, I love how one of the first things we see from him is like the foreman or whatever, abuses the worker who's in line in front of him. And you see just like the slightest, you see that he wants to stand up for the guy and do what's right, but he doesn't, right? Yeah. It's like, this is his life. He's just so downtrodden. And you could really buy that he's because this guy used to be a Jedi master and now he can't do anything. And the show contrasts that beautifully with the other Jedi we see in that first episode, right? The entire idea that Jedi hunt themselves because they cannot help but step in and help when people need help. And then we directly contrast that with Obi-Wan Kenobi, one of the greatest Jedi ever, doing nothing, seeing that people are in need, seeing that people need help, and choosing to look the other way. It's great. It's fucking great. And we've lost it now. We've lost it. And it just, I think one of the problems that the show is having, and this is not an original idea, I heard this on another podcast, so I just want to give credit to The Watch, the podcast I was listening to. And I'm actually curious if you agree with it or not. There's a lot of complicated stuff going on in Obi-Wan's head. He's a very complicated character. I like all of it. But because we have this child Leia character in this show,
who I don't hate, by the way. Everything that he has to do as far as explaining the way he's feeling is really dumbed down and simplified because he's talking to a child about it. And it's not like she's a smart kid, but she's also a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that sentiment that like because of the existence of this kid character, the complexity of what Obi-Wan is feeling is kind of flattened a little bit?
I think the way that I'll choose to respond to that is to say the only times my kids looked up from whatever they were doing in the room with this show on was when the little girl was talking, because hey, it's a kid and I kind of care what, if it's got a kid in it, that's automatically more interesting to kids. And cynically, I feel like that's why they did it, is they're like, well, we got to get, okay, so this we're the Star Wars brain trusts, we're geniuses, okay, we're gonna do it. It's gonna be about Obi-Wan, so it's gonna appeal to all the millennials who want to see this part of the story, but then we're also gonna appeal to the children. How are we gonna do that? We're just gonna have a kid in it, and that's it. And then because there's a kid in it, we need to we need to include some kids to kind of get some scenes to kind of get the kids caught up on like what is actually happening here, because the kid can't look at Ewan McGregor's beautiful, perfect acting and understand the deep pathos and struggle that he's going through by looking at the sadness in his eyes. That's not something that any 7-year-old is capable of. But if you kind of explain it like you would in a kid's cartoon show, then the kid can understand it. The problem is the kids already don't care. They're already checked out. They're not watching those scenes. They're just literally just vaguely look at the screen when the kid's talking, and then they're like, oh, it's more boring talking, because that's not actually, kids don't like that. Actually, if you put it into a good show, they'll watch it.
Yeah,
it's actually interesting to me that my kids don't like any of the new Star Wars content. They don't like it at all. I've tried. They don't even like The Mandalorian. I think The Mandalorian is like for us is what's.
I think it's all for us. I mean, I think you're right that they're throwing this stuff in there to attract to other demographics, but I think this stuff is primarily for those of us who were born in the 80s that grew up watching the original trilogy, moving on to the prequel trilogy. I do find it weird that we're in the state now where things that are being created in the Star Wars universe are nostalgic for the prequels. It's just a wild time to be alive. Like how much this whole show is indebted to the prequels. Like every episode has quotes directly lifted from it. And bless your heart, Hayden Christensen, it still doesn't sound good. And yet we play quotes of Anakin saying stuff, and I'm just like, oh, that line read still doesn't work, even placed in this movie or this show.
Well, it's particularly jarring to me. This is like among the more annoying nitpicks that I have, is like Hayden Christensen never tried to speak in the way that Darth Vader speaks. I'm not talking about the baritone of James Earl Jones. I'm talking about the way that he speaks. He speaks in this very clear, articulated cadence that, Hayden Christensen just talked like a guy. And so you're supposed to believe that Hayden Christensen, Anakin, is in the black suit, but it never works for me, because the one thing that should be recognizable should be the voice in some regard, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work at all for me. I never buy it. I'm always just like, it's just nails on a chalkboard every time Vader speaks, and I'm supposed to believe that that's Anakin Skywalker,
By the way, I think that is Hayden Christensen in the suit.
I think you're right, actually, but it's obviously James Earl Jones's voice.
I think they've digitally altered James Earl Jones's voice, because
it could be a copy, but yeah,
James Earl Jones is very old now. He's an old man, and when you get older, your voice changes, right? And the Vader we heard in Episode 3 sounds very much like the Vader of the original trilogy, and there's no way James Earl Jones has that same voice now. So I think they're doing a lot to it.
Yeah, no, I think it may even be just a voice actor who they've found who can approximate it. I don't actually know. I mean,
eventually they're just going to AI it, right?
Yeah, totally.
That's what Top Gun Maverick did, Matt. We'll talk about that in a sec.
Oh my God.
But yeah, anything else you want to say? I the scene, the entire scene on the truck, the transport truck with the stormtroopers, was great in how bad it was. I feel like here in a Star Wars property, we have a whole conversation where like, hey, you, what's your story? It's a long story. It's a long trip. Oh, my wife died and I'm taking my kid here. Okay. End of scene.
Yeah.
It's
No.
weird. It's weird structurally that we played that. It's great tension. It works. I think the moment where like Obi-Wan climbs into the back of the truck and sees the Empire logo on the back, when you're like shit, and then the one guy is like a total bootlicker, which is hilarious. Yeah. Who, by the way, I saw on the internet. I haven't confirmed this, but I saw that guy's played by Zach Braff, which is that little alien guy, which is wonderful. But anyway, that's really great tension. And then the stormtroopers come on there and there's really great tension there. And then they just leave, but then they like immediately go to a stormtrooper check-in. So like economy of storytelling says, just have those guys be the ones, you know? Yeah. Like why do that twice?
This is exactly what I mean about the scene to scene writing, where it's like, wait a minute. The only reason stormtroopers are here at all is that they're looking for a Jedi. And these guys just like gently questioned this obviously Jedi looking dude. They should have had pictures of him, by the way. Like everybody knows what Obi-Wan Kenobi looks like. So
the only way you can get a good picture of Obi-Wan Kenobi is by bringing your giant ass protocol or whatever floating droid over to take a picture of him. We're getting really nitpicky now. So this will be the end of our conversation. But Obi-Wan, like hiding on Tatooine, right? Digs his lightsaber and Anakin's lightsaber out of the ground. And then says, okay, I'm going to go save Leia, who's been kidnapped. He then puts on the Jedi uniform, which is, by the way, what he was wearing in A New Hope, right? But the prequels retroactively made the clothes that Obi-Wan Kenobi just happened to be wearing in New Hope the Jedi uniform.
Right.
And so now that's the Jedi uniform. And so he's sitting on a transport with 4 stormtroopers, and they're like, we're looking for a Jedi. And he has his lightsaber hanging from his belt and is wearing the Jedi uniform. And I mean, I know maybe this is just funny because we're supposed to say stormtroopers are inept, which of course they are. But it's just like, there's this random... Also, wouldn't you announce that he's traveling with a little girl as well?
Right.
Like,
well, like you say, is it supposed to be funny? Because if it's supposed to be funny, then like, is this supposed to be a tense scene? Or is it supposed to be a comedy scene? And,
I don't know.
And that's the type of writing mistake where really Ewan McGregor is just absolutely carrying it, because he's like, I'm going to inject all of this pathos into the character regardless of what's written down on the page here, because what's written down on the page sucks. And like, yeah, it's all him. It's all just him deciding to be like, I'm going to convey all of the struggle and sadness that this man has probably been going through, because scripture as hell isn't going to convey it.
He's making it work. Like lines like he calls her Leia by mistake, right? Which is kind of dumb, but he makes the line work when he says things like, "Oh, it's because she reminds me of her mother." And then the script has to go do something stupid where then Leia asks him about that, and then we have to like walk through. No, see, he was thinking about Padme. Did you maybe you didn't get that, viewer, that he was thinking about Padme when he said that? And it's like, yeah, no, we got it. That's how the subtlety and the wonderfulness of Ewan McGregor's performance really comes through there, because he makes that clear. And man, I don't know. It's not very good, but I will say I'm enjoying watching it more than, like, for example, like Moon Knight or something, or certainly Boba Fett. I've already watched more episodes of this than I watched of Boba Fett, so I guess I'm liking it more. I don't know where they go from here with this now, though. Like, are we gonna have another Vader Obi-Wan fight by the end of it?
I'm afraid so, Scott.
Because we have to, right? Because we have to have a fight where he's a Jedi again fight, where he probably won't fight. Actually, he'll just do like the Luke I won't fight you thing, and we'll shoot that to mirror the Return of the Jedi scene, because we can't fucking help ourselves.
I mean, what's funny is they're probably not even smart enough to do that. It'll probably be a moment where it's actually like badass, which is the opposite of what you want, you know, because he's going to realize, because I don't know, the prequels are always screwed up with respect to like, what are we supposed to think about the Jedi? Because you're right. What Luke does at the end of Return of the Jedi is the correct way to do it. But like, that's not the ethos of the way the Jedi actually are in the prequels.
Sure.
So I don't know. We'll see, man. I don't know. I think I will watch the next episode. If the next episode sucks real bad, then I'm probably going to bail.
I don't actually know how many there are. I don't. Oh, I don't want to look it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm having trouble finding it. I think there aren't too many. I think there are 6 total.
Okay, well then they got me past the halfway point at
No,
least.
7.
Okay,
No, 6.
Okay.
6.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I hate being this negative about stuff, and I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are really genuinely enjoying the show, and I feel very happy for you, but it stinks. It just stinks.
Do doof.
But you know what doesn't stink, Matt?
What?
Top Gun Maverick.
Well, tell me about it. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil this for anyone, but this movie fucking rules.
Okay.
I can't believe this movie rules. So, yeah, I was. How do you like Top Gun? Are you a fan of the movie Top Gun?
I mean, am I I like the movie. I don't think I've seen it in many years.
Yeah.
So I would feel it would feel wrong saying I'm a fan for a movie I just haven't seen in forever. But I like the movie. Yes.
Yeah, I like it fine. I like it fine.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie. I like airplanes, and I like when they go fast and they fight. So I liked Top Gun, but I was not like you would not find me like really excited for a Lego sequel to Top Gun 20 something years. 30 something years later.
Mm-hmm.
But I forgot about one thing, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And that thing I forgot about is Tom fucking Cruise, the savior of cinema, who legitimately might have just saved cinema with this movie.
Okay.
Like the movie blew up projections. It's doing very well, and fascinatingly, it is doing very well in the old people demographics. Like it, which I guess is not surprising considering Top Gun, but it's like it's not that it wasn't expected to do well in those groups, but how well it's doing is really surprising. Like old people, boomers, Gen X, like these people are coming out in force to see this movie. And like that's a group that, you know, of all the groups that were going to movies, not going near as much, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, you just lost us all of our Gen X listeners by calling them old people, but go on.
Matt, we're millennials and we're old people.
You're
Gen
right.
X, definitely old people now.
Okay. Well, yeah, good top spin, Scott. I like it. All right.
But oh my God, what a fucking film. And so like, you know, there's been a lot of Lego sequels, which is the term that we've kind of just decided to call like when you make a new movie in a series that has not been made in many, many years and you bring back the same characters, you know, like I'm thinking, you know, The Force Awakens, I'm thinking Creed, I'm thinking Blade Runner 2049, I guess it would technically qualify for that because Harrison Ford comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad ones of these movies are ones that do this thing where they like wink at the audience with the kind of MCU-esque awareness of how ridiculous this whole thing is.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason Top Gun Maverick works because it is 100% sincere in all the incredibly corny, wonderful things it does.
Mm-hmm.
It is this movie that is designed to be entertaining constantly in the most sincere way, in a way that blockbuster movies just aren't anymore, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like sincerity is kind of a bad word in modern blockbusters. And this movie is wonderfully sincere. It is fascinatingly apolitical in that we are not told who the bad guys are. They do not exist. Nothing exists in our world in this movie. And that's fine because it's not about fighting the bad guys. It's about fighting your own personal demons. It's about overcoming your own problems via really fast plane. It's just wonderfully constructed. They do this thing at the very beginning where like one of the things that the movie acknowledges it has to do is that fighters don't do what they did in 1986 anymore because technology, like missile technology and drone technology, has gotten to the point where like there's no need to dogfight anymore at all. And so the movie has to like do serious work to concoct a scenario in which it makes sense for these people to be in fighter planes in a scenario where they could possibly have to dogfight. And it works. Like it's just like I told you this earlier, but it's basically the oh no, my cell phone doesn't have a signal of airplanes. Like it just yada yadas away all the reasons for why it doesn't make sense for them to be in a modern gen fighter fighting what a modern gen fighter would do, which is just launching missiles from hundreds of miles away. And the missile tracking systems are so good that you don't even have to see your enemy to hit them with a missile. But man, it's so good. And Matt, the way that they shot this movie is the most crazy thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So they put 6 cameras inside of an F-18, and then they put the actors in the back seat of the F-18, and then they just had the pilots do all the crazy shit that they're doing in the movie.
Wow.
And they just recorded the actors acting to it. So like there's this scene where Tom Cruise is doing all this crazy shit, and Tom Cruise is 60 years old somehow. And you hear him grunting through the G's, right? So the plane is doing these like back and forth, like kind of going through a trench type thing. And it's really fast turns at really high speeds. And so the G forces that's throwing your body around are really severe. And Cruise is like grunting through it. And it's just the most incredibly believable thing you've ever seen. Like it's all like, it's not all practical, but like it's 90% practical. Everything they did in this movie. You've never seen planes shot like this before. You've never seen aerial combat shot like this before. It's absolutely remarkable what they did. From what I read, they have these 6 cameras inside the plane. They had very limited time because it's very expensive to go up in these planes. So they went up in the plane. They rehearsed the scene beforehand a lot of times, so the actors knew exactly what they needed to do. And then the plane landed after an hour or so, and the director had all that footage, and he had to comb through all the footage and find out what was usable. If something wasn't quite right, they had to go up again in their next window, which is they get 2 windows a day. And so it's just a wild way to shoot a movie, and it pays off in incredible ways. Like, see this movie in the theater, see it on as big a screen as possible. It's wild, and it's so much fun, and it makes you cry. And man, I can't believe this movie is as good as it is.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. I think I'm prioritizing this to go see, even though I haven't seen the other movie in theaters that's really great that everybody says I should see. And the reason is that I can take my kids to this one. Maybe. So one question I had is like, do you need to know who Goose is going into this movie? Okay.
No. So I mean, the conceit of the movie is Goose's son Rooster is a pilot as well, and is in Top Gun, and there's a lot of conflict between Maverick and Rooster because of what happened to Goose and some other stuff that the movie gets into. But you do not have to. The movie makes that all very, very clear to you exactly why. It goes through that in a lot of detail. So you do not need to have seen Top Gun. Now, I will say that this movie like loves Top Gun, and it's not that it copied a lot of shots. It's going. So here's the weird thing: there are scenes in this movie that are like just verbatim copied from Top Gun. But then there are scenes that are completely different. You can tell it's a very different director with a very different style, especially in all the aerial combat stuff. That is not shot the same way because they can do things in 2022 that they could not do at all in 1986. Even though what they did in 1986, what Tony Scott did, is incredibly impressive to get these shots of these planes. But they can do so much more than that now. And so the aerial combat looks like nothing you've ever seen before. And then, of course, when they're playing football on the beach in jeans, that looks exactly like them playing volleyball on the beach in jeans in the 80s, except with less homoerotic subtext, I think, than the first movie had. Yeah, I agree. This movie is weirdly asexual, even though there's a romantic relationship between Tom Cruise and Jennifer Connelly. But it's like there's a sex scene in the original Top Gun that is like vintage 80s horniness, and none of that happens in this movie. It's just movies aren't made that way anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't have the international. You can't sell it to all the foreign markets if you got all the sex in it.
Yeah. So, but it doesn't matter, man, because Tom Cruise is incredible. This movie is so good. Everything works. Everything works when it shouldn't work. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. When I heard that the plot of this movie was Goose's son is a pilot now, I rolled my fucking eyes because I'm like, that's so stupid. But it's not. It works. It all works. I can't believe it works, but it does. This movie is a miracle, and everyone should go see it.
Yeah, I will. Should we explain what you meant earlier when you talked about how there was digital voice alteration?
Oh, yes. So Val Kilmer, who played Iceman, is in this movie. Val Kilmer had throat cancer and cannot speak anymore. So the way the movie deals with that, I won't spoil it all, but the way movie deals with that is extremely respectful and wonderful, and it made me cry. But one of the things they do is he does say a few lines, and obviously it's not Val Kilmer's voice because he can't speak anymore, but it is a digital recreation of Val Kilmer's voice based on different AI, being fed a lot of Val Kilmer speech over the years and kind of digitally constructing a version of his voice. And it like, this is another thing where, like, in another movie, I don't think this is handled as well, and it's kind of eye-rolly and hacky a little bit, but that's not this movie. And in this movie, it works, and it's a touching, wonderful scene that I really actually loved.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to me, where it's like, hey, this is using technology to help with the fact that Val Kilmer has throat cancer, which is totally different from let's ghoulishly resurrect a dead actor to cash in.
Yep.
This is like a prosthesis.
Yeah, I agree. It's great. I hope I've sold the movie to everyone without spoiling it. I like the plot. The plot of the original Top Gun's a little weird because it's just like, we got, you got to pass the tests, and then you did it. Oh no, action scene. Let go. Right. This movie is much better plotted. It's much better. The structure is much better. It does a very good job of explaining the stakes of everything. And it's just the mission that is the thing that defines this movie is kind of set up from the very beginning. And it's just fun as shit, man. It's just high octane, planes go fast, wonderful feels. It's the best movies can do. It's the best, like, action movies this type of movie can do. And you got to see it. You just got to. Yeah,
I want to see it this weekend.
Do it, man. Take your kids. They might not love it, but you will.
All right.
And it's got it got the soundtrack in it, man. The Top Gun soundtrack was so good.
Part of childhood is your dad dragging you to go see, like, dad movies.
That's true.
Even if it's not your thing. So
that's true.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna get off my high horse now, or my soapbox rather. Or wait, what is the correct term for this? Because it's not a soapbox either. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get off the pulpit.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah. I'm gonna get off the pulpit about Tom Cruise saving movies. Mission Impossible 7. I don't even know. The next Mission Impossible comes out next year, and I can't fucking wait.
Yeah. Awesome.
He's miraculous, Matt. He's 60 years old. He's 60 years old.
He's never gonna stop.
How does he do it?
He's gonna die jumping the Grand Canyon on a motorcycle.
Yeah. Well, one day I want to talk to you about Tom Cruise's career because I find it's so fascinating. Maybe when the Mission Impossible movie comes out.
Yeah, sounds good. All
right, that is it for this week. If you have any opinions on 1492, probably not. I'm sure you'll have a lot of opinions on Obi-Wan Kenobi or on Top Gun Maverick. You can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, on Twitter @doofmedia, or over on our Reddit account, or Reddit page rather, that is r/doofmedia, where you will find a post for this episode where you can comment all about how we are totally wrong about Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's actually the best show ever.
I do expect that'll be the main form of engagement with this episode.
Yeah.
If you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to subscribe and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find the Doofcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, etc., etc.
And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge at any of the available levels for a whole bunch of cool free stuff, including access to one of our bonus shows that had a new episode this week. Matt, that's your show, right? What'd you talk about?
We talked about Elden Ring.
Again?
Well, what we really talked about is we talked about the latest AI breakthroughs and the 1996 video game Creatures, which was an AI video game.
What?
And I talked about the Jurassic World exhibition that I went to on last weekend, which was really fun. And if they ever do a Jurassic World exhibition in your town, I actually recommend it, especially if you have kids that you want to just scare the shit out of. But to learn more about that, I recommend listening to the episode I did with Daniel. It's the first thing we talk about if you're curious about the Jurassic Park thing. It's the first thing we talk about. So
Good deal. So you can find that at patreon.com/doofmedia. It is available to everyone that pledges at the $10 level or higher there. So check it out. Check it out.
yeah. Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, because every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks, that is it for us this week. We'll see you next week, where I believe we're going to have a canon episode. Maybe not, since I haven't gotten that poll up. Maybe we'll just do Ridley Scott next week again, and I'll get the poll up, and we'll do that after. So we'll be back next week no matter what. So we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.